Community High School Board of Education meeting for March 9th, 2020. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Lane,
Present.
Dr. Demicus, Mr. Noble,
Here.
Ms. Inzer,
Here.
Mr. Mormon,
Here.
Ms. Davis,
Here.
Mr. Weinbrenner.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I don't have a president's report tonight, so we're going to move right into the superintendent report.
And I will hand off initially to Dr. Holland.
So our students were not able to be here tonight, send their regrets. I just want to start by mentioning that our talent show was a great success. Thank you to the APT for leading this wonderful tradition with our students and our staff, and congrats to all of our students who did a phenomenal job. Our TEDx event is Thursday. This Thursday, we're really excited about all of our speakers. We have student speakers as well as adult speakers, and if you're available, please make plans to log in. The event is live streamed during the day. Beginning March 16th, we are asking all of our students to purchase items in our cafeteria using their student ID. Information went out to all of our families. This is a safety measure that we're implementing. We're no longer allowing students to key in their ID numbers. There are mistakes sometimes, and we're trying to avoid that. Our students currently use their IDs to scan into our resource centers, so it shouldn't be that much of a difference. If any student needs an ID replacement, they can go to our help desk located in the basement of the school. On Thursday, March 19th, we have our Illinois Science Assessment. That's a requirement for all of our juniors. As many of you know, 95% of our juniors are required. We need 95%, a minimum, to take it. We've communicated out to families. The assessment will take place during the school day from 8 to 11:45, and more information is on our website. I want to close by saying thank you to the foundation. We recently celebrated the 18th annual grant day. Our staff, they were glowing all day long. We always appreciate the partnership with the foundation. They awarded grants over $270,000, and it's always a really fun day, and we continue to be grateful for the partnership. A lot of the amazing educational experiences we have in our school are due to the foundation, and they definitely live their mission in terms of investing in the education of our students. So I want to thank everyone who's been involved, including the community members who continue to provide generous donations. Thank you.
And there are other parts of the superintendent's report. I want to discuss briefly the community open house, which we held this past week, and I'd like to say thank you to John Noble and Jenny Zenzer for being speakers, and our board members, most of whom attended, our oversight committee members, had a number of them in attendance and presenting as well. And we had a lot of our administrators and staff who helped set up, worked at stations, they filmed, they prepared a lot to do the film as well, and established the smooth execution for the event. So some of the high points for the meeting: we conducted 4 tours. We had over 60 participants in those tours and went to a number of different spaces in the building. And this is really a pretty unusual opportunity for people in the community because it's not easy to go into school like it used to be. And so one of the things that was evident were that there are aspects of our building that are in great shape, the things that we did in 2006, for example, and there are other areas that we haven't been able to touch for many, many years. We filmed our presentation. We had a lot of lively feedback. We launched our interactive website, which I want to take you to right now. So when you go to lfhs.org, I don't need to translate this page. This is the landing page, and then all our residents have to do in order to participate, if they weren't able to go to the meeting, is go here and click here. And that takes you to John Noble, step 1. And so here we have the video of that presentation. And then step 2 is to click on the various categories and provide input. So Future Ready Learners, we have Cindy Collier. She does a video to orient people to it. And then click through the various areas and it provides a summary. This is typical classroom, and these are images from the boards that were up on the walls. You can see all of that. And then they can provide their feedback down below. Tell us what you'd like to keep, stop, or start. And so for each of the areas, to be clear, for each of the 4 areas, there is information that people can get. So this happens to be preparing future-ready students, but in each of the areas, there's the same opportunity to provide feedback, so enhancing specialized learning spaces. Jenny Zinzer and Eileen Swarthout did the video for us, so thank you for that. And you can drill down into the various areas, and again, provide your feedback on there. Click which one of these demographics happen to apply to you, and go from there. It also lets you know what the next steps are in the process. So I'd like to thank Ann Whipple for putting this together. It was impressive enough that people outside the organization said we would like to adopt that and use that for our community open house. So very good. And so our next steps are April 13th. We have a Board of Education meeting. We have a preliminary recommendation for the health and life safeties to the board. And then again on May 11th, the final report from the Oversight Committee. So there's a great deal of work that we're going to be doing until then. I also want to address some rumor control from the meeting. There were some things bouncing around the community that the board had held a secret meeting the night of the open house. I want to make clear that the Illinois Open Meetings Act requires that we had a posted board meeting for the open house. And the reason for that is we have a quorum of the board present at the meeting, and you must take minutes, and you must allow public comment. There was no action item there. It was posted a week in advance, and the only thing that was done was to open the meeting and then to close the meeting. That was it. But when board members are present to do work at a board meeting, the business of the board, it must be posted as a board meeting. Next up is the coronavirus. Nancy Messonnier of the CDC sort of got the ball rolling for schools by encouraging the nation to call their school and ask if they're ready for teleschool, as she called it, and ask what their plan was. And that was just about a week ago. What's happening worldwide? I've followed German newspapers pretty avidly, and I think there's reason to believe what has happened in Germany, we will see this here. So there were about 16 cases on the 24th of February. As of last Friday, there were 684. As of today in Germany, there are 1,200. And there is reason to believe that we're going to see a rapid ramp up, just like Germany experienced. So what have we done to date? So some of the things that we've done is we created a task force. It started with the cabinet working, then we the next week expanded to a task force and widened the work group. We're working on our pandemic emergency plan. Today I met with regional superintendents from 211 and Evanston and a number of different large high schools in the region. The key takeaway, and this is shared experience from the superintendents, because we've been through the bird flu and we've been through SARS and we've been through swine flu, is look, you really need to defer to your Lake County Health Department or your Cook County Health Department, whatever the case might be, and the Illinois Department of Health for guidance. Don't try to be an epidemiologist, and don't try to make these determinations on your own, because there's going to be any number of different winds that will push you in various directions. So defer to the experts. Each week we've also sent communications to all family and staff. We'll send another one tomorrow. We sent one today, I'll mention in a moment. Created a dedicated web page regarding the coronavirus on our website. Importantly, we've also worked with our cleaning crews to make sure that we're doing a daily wipe of frequently touched surfaces, and then wiping down all of our desks, and then ordering additional equipment where necessary, making hand sanitizer available in many, many more spaces. We've worked with food service and transportation to make sure they're following best practices. We've limited hand-to-hand contact, and we've really wound up emphasizing the increase in hand washing. I talked to our department chair for phys ed the other day, and one of the things he said was, look, we're letting kids out a minute or two early. They are reluctant to go to the washrooms and wash their hands, but they do it. Think of every barbell, every piece of equipment they touch, every time. These things both need to be wiped down, but also kids need to wash their hands after they use them, and they also need to wash their hands before they eat, obviously also. I've also mentioned the gym class. We've coordinated messages from our nurses to all staff about what the best practices are. And then we've been in contact with our local health care providers. So one of the regular conversations that I have is with Tom McAfee from the hospital, but also speaking directly with Lake County Health and the Illinois Department of Health. And we're monitoring the CDC on an ongoing basis. We do rely on experts in the field for our guidance. We'll rely on the departments that I just mentioned. If we do have any cases, we anticipate that we will not be making a decision alone. It's likely to be a coordinated effort. If we have any sort of school closing questions or concerns, it will likely be whether it be a county or a region of sorts, and that we will again be getting guidance from experts on that. We sent a letter out today about a staff member who is self-quarantining. We spoke directly to the Illinois Department of Health and the Lake County Health Department independently, outlining the particulars of the incident, and asked for their guidance on that. Their recommendation was, we recommend routine operation, so continue what you're doing, continue school, and ensure the frequent cleaning of high-touch areas like doorknobs and desks, and also, again, for the umpteenth time, hand washing. I talked to one of my fellow superintendents. He said, first time in my life, we were at a big basketball game. Everybody left the basketball game. They went into the restroom, and students and adults alike were lined up waiting to use the sinks to wash their hands. So the message has gotten through, which is a good thing for this and other areas. We also have a trip that is planned to Europe. We're going to send a communication later on tonight regarding rescheduling that. We've been working with the travel company to consider options. It is quite complicated, and so we're going to have to do the best that we can to make that work. One of the reasons that I've been following Germany so closely is that the trip is headed, one of the stops on the way is headed to Germany, and I've been wanting to watch what our students would be going into there. One of the concerns that I would have is that they might get there and might not be able to come back, is what has happened in Italy just today, and that is certainly the last thing that we want to see happen with our students. Tomorrow we'll be sending out a communication on spring break and travel. We'll be requesting families let us know what their upcoming travel plans are. We're also going to be alerting families that they should self-quarantine if they visit level 3 areas, and we'll define what those places are. One of the concerns that I have as the superintendent of the district is that our families are going to travel. They are going to go to a wide range of places, and what are we going to experience when we come back after spring break? I also want to end on a positive note. One of the things that is obvious from our tours is if we look at what we've done in the building for the last, I'll just say the last 8 years, I can't go farther back than that, the areas that we're really proud of, whether it be the incubator or the maker space or other things, we can point to one organization for many of those, and that is the foundation. So $270,000 in grants. They really stepped up to the plate. They had a lot of large things that they wanted to take on this year, and I want to say thank you to them. And that completes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? If you want to address the board, step up to the podium, state your name. I would ask that we keep comments to 3 minutes or less. Oh, there's also a sign-up sheet for you to have follow-up questions after you speak. You can sign right on the desk.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Victor. I am a parent of a senior at Lake Forest High School, and I attended the open house last week. My ears perked up when someone told me about a master plan that the high school had that talked about the need to replace aging equipment, controllability, and stacked toilets. The reason I did that is I have, for the past 30 years, have been in the building construction, facility audit field. I currently own a portfolio of apartment and mixed-use buildings that I manage, and I don't maintain them myself, but I have about 60 to 80 contractors I work with. I'm a degreed mechanical engineer, and I've worked at Skidmore, Owings & Merrill and Environmental Systems Design, which is the Midwest's largest engineering firm. So I, over the past week or so, have FOIA'd a bunch of documents from the high school via Ms. Hermes and Ms. Hughes. And my intent was to identify why the school felt that this equipment needed to be replaced. Why did it need to be new? So one of the first things I asked for was, I'm hitting things. One of the first things I asked for was a list of the building equipment and the useful life and the age and all that good stuff. I did get it, but there were only a few items where it had the age of the equipment and the remaining useful life, very few. Some of the towers, the air handling units, so on and so forth. So ASHRAE, which is the go-to organization on life expectancy, has a chart. You know, and it is true, like the boilers will last 30 years. Right now, the rate packs I think that you have are about 20 years. So I wanted to understand the urgency that the school felt they had and the rationale. I also asked for contracts for the mechanical, fire protection, life safety, plumbing, temperature controls. The only one of those I got was the temperature controls vendor, Siemens. I wanted the best people to tell you if what your equipment is doing, whether it's life safety, a sprinkler head, anything, is that vendor and your maintenance guy. Because he'll go, you know what, on whatever, there's always, I'm going to use mechanical since that's my forte. It's always cold in here at 5 a.m., but then all of a sudden it'll get hot at 10. So Siemens, you have a really nice Siemens building control contract, a temperature controls contract. In it says we will give you regular advice as to, you know, energy audits as to what is happening with this equipment. And when I was at the tour, I noticed that in some of the classrooms, the thermostat was set for 75, but it was much cooler in there, like 68 or something like that. And what your issue is, so I would ask, and the thermostats looked really old, so they probably do need to be replaced or upgraded or something like that. But before I go into that, the issue is you've got those unit ventilators that are supposed to be heating, and meanwhile you have your makeup air unit above that is providing, from the air handling unit, air that I could feel was cooler. So you've got one thermostat, and the systems are, I'm trying to heat, but I'm too cold. And maybe, and I'm going to get technical, but maybe up at that air handling unit, it doesn't know to control itself. There could be a bad damper, a bad actuator. I wanted to see what Siemens was telling us about the systems. I wanted to see what your mechanical contractor was telling us about the cooling coil. Is it crapped out? Is that just what needs to be replaced? For me doing 40 million square feet of facility audits, rarely does equipment need to be replaced at 20 years. So that was my concern there. Once again, I didn't see any of the maintenance contracts. So I saw a lot of fighting thermostats. I do think, of course, I was surprised to see the older windows. I mean, I drive by the high school all the time, but I definitely would replace the windows, and I think you'll get a bunch of energy savings that way. So I think there's fighting thermostats. I see that the fan-powered units have filters, according to the building schedule, and I'm kind of curious who's replacing those filters. Because if those filters are clogged, that's going to restrict airflow. I talked about the boilers. I would have liked to see maintenance reports that really will tell the story of a building. I have another big concern. Oh, and finally, before I forget, is I do a lot of pro bono consulting for other institutions that are near and dear to my heart. And recently, I am doing one with a system like the classrooms. It is a classroom. And to redo those temperature controls, it is difficult, if not nearly impossible. So you might want to consider eventually, but it doesn't need to be done today, looking into different systems. Or just asking Siemens what can be done with what we got.
Okay, so thank you. That was all really helpful. We're over time, but if you had one more statement or two you wanted to punch in, I do appreciate what you're suggesting. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I would do the windows. I would really look at what your contractors are doing. I don't think an architect is qualified, just because I've worked with the best and the brightest to tell you what's going on and how to maintain it and what you should do. The words like controllability and stacked toilets is something that energy efficient is a huge no-no. So that's why I'm here.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Hey, Mike, you don't
Can I
have to
make a-
worry about the corona. I'm sorry, Patrick, Pat.
Pardon me for one quick moment.
Oh, okay.
So this may seem like a related comment, but it's not. But potentially the board should explore whether or not we would have any individuals who would want to be on an infrastructure committee and provide some pro bono auditing, because I know it's beyond most of our backgrounds, that may be of benefit looking at some of these critically, but somebody who has skin in the game as a taxpayer who'd be willing to provide an expertise that we don't have.
Good. Noted.
Okay, Patrick, Pat, and Mike, you don't have to worry about the coronavirus because our president said it's going to be gone in April, as soon as the weather warms up. So all of that was really for nothing. You spent a lot of time for nothing. I will confess that I really haven't had any tour of the high school until last week. My wife and I moved in a little over 30 years ago. Our kids were past high school age, but I have a grandson that's going to be a freshman. In fact, he's in that advanced math class, so he's in the high school on almost a daily basis. To be very honest with you, and I appreciate all that the 7 of you have done, but there were some things that came out that made me a little bit quizzical. One of them was, as we walked around on the tour guide kept pointing out all the pizzazzy things that took place in the school, but they were all foundation related. We wound up in a chemistry room, and I thought, if this is indicative of what's been going on or what's been taking place for a few years, a chemistry room that had a bunch of exhaust hoods that didn't work. Now, I don't know if it just stopped working a week ago, a month ago, 6 months ago, and when I heard that the science rooms haven't been updated since 1992, that's 28 years ago. That's a generation. And my concern is that if there wasn't money put in the budget to cover things like this to work with the foundation, I'm really worried about the program. You know, STEM has been around for a long time, but there doesn't seem to be an emphasis on doing something about those science rooms. And I know your life safety report's going to take place, I think, in April, I believe. And I've gone through those, the 10-year re-eval. But nobody should have to come in from the regional office to tell you that your chemistry hoods don't work. And I guess I'm looking at the fact that you can wave a AAA bond rating around all you want, But if you're not servicing the students, that doesn't mean a lot to me. You know, it's kind of like on a family basis. Hey, my checking account has gotten a lot larger. My kids aren't eating. They're walking around without shoes. But, you know, that's wonderful. So if this was a rollout into a potential referendum, I don't know how much you're talking about needing to be able to do the things that need to be done. But I tell you, and I don't have Stephanie's background. She's the engineer. By the way, she is a neighbor, though. I didn't know she would be here. But my wife and I have about 60 years in the education profession. I've gone through these, you know, life safety 10-year things. And, you know, I don't know how much money it's going to take, but it seems to me that it really hasn't, a lot of these things haven't been priorities over the years. And I think it's time to do that. And if just the chemistry hoods are the only thing wrong in the building, that's great. But that tells me there are a lot of other little bits and pieces that should be taken care of. So again, thank you for your service. I'd like to see the budget maybe incorporate as much money as the foundation does to do some of these, quote, pizzazzy things. And again, don't worry about the coronavirus. It's dead already. The stable genius has spoken.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy Morehouse, and I have been a resident of Lake Forest for over 50 years. Won't say how many over 50, but over 50. A graduate of Lake Forest High School, as well as many of my family. So we have an invested interest in the community. I do have a master's degree in instructional design and curriculum development, and I'm an independent educational consultant. I work with kids all over the nation, helping them with SATs and ACTs, as well as college sourcing. So I have a lot of impact with students at this point. Also, I spend time during the day working as a corporate trainer, working with millennials down in Chicago and out here in Lincolnshire. I work for a multinational insurance brokerage. And so I know I've got access to millennials, recent graduates. Most of my interests, educational interest, research interest, is in learning diversity and neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is something new that's coming up as we're seeing come into the corporate job market. So a lot of the students that have ADD or other neurodiverse types of challenges we see in the high schools, and now we're seeing them in the workforce. And so a lot of my research is going into that field at this point. I came last week, I was kind of just blindsided by everything that was going on. I haven't really been paying attention to what y'all are doing over there at the high school. So I did a little bit of research and carrying around this Oprah magazine because it was sitting on my coffee table. I opened it up and there was an article about open plan learning and open plan at work. And so that intrigued me. And so I took a look at that. Some of the information here is, and this was done by Joy Hardin Bradford, who is a PhD licensed psychologist, and she's the founder of Therapy for Black Girls, community-based. Her article is saying that with these open floor plans, the reports are that people are becoming socially withdrawn. There's a heightened increase of anxiety, and there's too much sensory stimulation for many of the participants in these open floor plans. So we are seeing, in my corporate position, we are seeing that we are moving, we have floors of open seating, and the millennials don't want to be there. They want to have their own private space, a space that they can control. And so I caution a lot of the comments last week where this is the wave of the future, this is how work is going, and I'm finding in the corporate workspace that this is not how it's going. We're actually retreading and providing more huddle rooms where people can work collaboratively, but then giving our millennials their individual space that they want. A little of my non-scientific research As I said, I work with kids all over the country on SAT and ACT, as well as college, finding colleges. I asked them about this kind of floor plan. They said they want organized classes, they want structure, they want rules. They find that in these larger group environments, a few control the whole group of learning. And one girl said she wants to focus on learning something during that period. She doesn't want just kind of a free-form educational environment. She has very high goals. She wants to go to, a great school, and she wants to learn something in that time frame. She doesn't want to just have it open. Some of the other.
Okay, we're over the time a bit.
Okay.
But if you have a couple more statements you want to
Sure.
make, please.
So the other non-scientific research I did with my millennials, recently graduated from college, coming into their first jobs. They said that they want personal space, they want privacy, and they would rather have huddle rooms for group projects. And I'll be doing more research. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Hi, my name's Anna Maria Vitti Welch. I'm a Lake Forest taxpayer. I was also at the event last week, and I'll tell you, it was very organized, well thought out. It was fantastic that we were able to go into smaller rooms and then give our opinions and comments. But I was kind of disappointed because I know that we spoke about in January when this was rolled out to the board and also to some of us that came, that it would be a good idea, and I know Jenny, you mentioned it, that about the life safety results and also what really needs to have to be done, that would be very, very important for the community that came out to see what really needs to be done. And I'm kind of surprised that we didn't give a deadline, or you didn't give a deadline for the life safety results, because you spent so much time trying to get all these people there. Another thing is I hope we hear about research about this collaborative that we are kind of like going towards. I'm wondering if there's going to be a plan B for kids that have anxiety, ADHD, the sensory. I know my daughter, who had a learning disability, she would never be able to, learn in that type of environment. So I'm wondering what's going to happen to those children. Also, what about, hopefully we'll hear about what it's going to cost and also what it's going to take to ramp up the teachers to teach this style, because obviously it's brand new. It's not like traditional standing up in front of the class and speaking. And then lastly, which is kind of on another note, I was wondering if your committee was going to go to the real estate offices in town. I know there's about 7 or 8 of them, and I think it would be very valuable to get their information and their input on what the buyers and sellers are saying to them about Lake Forest. And maybe, that could give you some input too, because I know that I've spoken to some of the realtors, and they would love to partner up with the board to kind of let you know what these people are asking about. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, with that, we're going to move on to our security report.
President Lane and Superintendent Simic, I want to thank you and all the board members for allowing me the opportunity to be here tonight to talk about my passion, and that's District 15 safety and security. Tried to break my presentation down into some nice edible bullet points for us to go through so we can get through this quickly. As you know, I started at Lake Forest High School about 1.5 years ago, and I had some very robust goals for trying to bring in best practices in security and safety. So I wanted to talk about what we accomplished last year, We reorganized our entry procedures with lobby guard kiosks, and that goes a little bit towards what the superintendent said about the building not being maybe as easy to get into as it used to be. That was by design. In addition to the reorganized entry procedures, we also initiated a key control policy and also better oversight over our access control system, working with the people that manage that system to make sure we are watching who has access to the building. I developed and implemented a confidential reporting tool. Confidential reporting tools are best practices. That even was a big piece in the Presidential Commission on School Safety that came out following Parkland, was providing students with an opportunity to see something, say something. And we put together an in-house tool that allows students to quickly report something of concern that sends an automatic notification to key administrators in the building and allows us to quickly investigate and take action on areas of concern reported by students. We've conducted evacuation drills with student accountability, and what that basically means is we are no longer just saying, okay, everybody out of the building, okay, everybody back in the building. We took the time to have all of the faculty members account for the students that were supposed to be with them, report students that were not, and then find out where those students were. Was quite an undertaking, but we've gotten better every time we've done it. Modified the severe weather shelter plan by relocating everyone to lower levels of the building. Our building, as you know, is a great architectural space, but being a tall building like that, it represents some unique challenges for being safe during severe weather. We had a tornado this past year in a neighboring community, so we took it upon ourselves to enhance our severe weather shelter plan by moving everybody to the lower levels in the basement. We did it for the first time this year past, and it was quite successful, and it worked very well, and I was very pleased. Issued red clipboards to all of our staff members containing an emergency quick reference chart. What that is bullet points, so that if staff members need information quickly, that information is at hand. Also, in addition to that, I designed evacuation route maps for the staff members to access that made our evacuation routes much more efficient, taking into account the upper load coming down the stairwells and trying to balance that load and maximize our evacuation time. Distributed a micro drill guide for improved classroom preparedness. What micro drills are is it takes the concept of a school-wide drill and it breaks it down to the individual classroom level. I've gone to many of the departments and conducted training with those staff members on how to conduct a micro drill in the classroom with their students. Because if we're only doing a lockdown or law enforcement drill one time during the year, essentially all those students are exposed to is being locked down in that space at that time on that day. It's important for these students to know in every space that they're in the building where the safe location is. And it also creates a level of confidence between the students and their faculty member that they are together and that the faculty is invested in student safety and security. And I'm getting a lot of positive feedback about our micro drill program. In addition to that, for improved classroom preparedness, we have reemphasized the importance of locked classroom doors during the school day. It's one less step that a staff member has to take when preparing to secure the building. Also being cognizant of the cleared pathways that we would need for evacuation, and I've had them look at the spatial orientation of their rooms to make sure that we provide for that. We reprogrammed our emergency panic buttons. the system is a great system, but the way it communicates to us about where a panic button is being pressed is difficult to interpret. So I worked with the provider for that system to come up with a way that when we see the location of that code that comes up, we can decipher that code and quickly determine where that panic button is being pressed. I went through and had all the PA speakers in the building tested, repaired if broken, and had the teachers report back based on morning announcements that they're hearing announcements clearly and effectively, because that currently is our main source of communication with our staff. We also talked about identifying the safe areas in all spaces, not just within the classrooms, but within office areas and stuff like that. And once we identify those spaces, make sure that, again, they're uncluttered and available in the event of an emergency. Focus for 2019, the current school year. We have several new staff members on the department, and that allowed me to reallocate our safety and security personnel. And the focus is on improved engagement with our students by having somebody inside the building, working the hallways and the common spaces. We collaborate with the dean's office on areas of concern, whether it's vaping in a bathroom or somebody leaving the building during particular times, to increase our presence there. And then we've also extended our evening hours for evening activities and events, so that we have somebody in the building covering those times and making sure everybody is safely out of the building. Integrated drill procedures. What that means basically is we've combined several drills, because many times when a drill is implemented, it may involve an escalation or de-escalation. So, for instance, this year we did a lockdown drill with the assistance of the Lake Forest Police Department, and then we immediately went from a lockdown to a controlled evacuation. Those two processes frequently in a real life situation will be combined together, and it's important our students experience that. Also, we're looking at increased capacity in the form of knowledge and understanding of our protocols, and then also we're looking now to start talking more about efficiency. How quickly can we evacuate the building? How quickly can we get downstairs? The prevailing logic for a safe shelter during a severe weather is about 3 minutes. That's going to help with increased notification of severe weather in the area, and we had our system in the office repaired so that we are getting national announcements about severe weather in the area. We also adopted a formal threat assessment process, one that the board voted on at the beginning of the year, but along with that is the establishment of a threat assessment team in our building, and then team training, which I've conducted with the team members. I had the good fortune of attending the state facilitators training class for people that want to become trainees in the state for threat assessment. And so I was able to put together a training program that I've shared not only with District 115, I did a training in 67 with tabletops, and also with District 65. I established a parent student safety and security advisory committee made up of students within the building and interested parents. We've met 3 times this year. It's a great opportunity for all of the people to be recognized as stakeholders in safety and security, and participate in kind of understanding and offering input and insight into our practices. I also developed and presented a KTI training program for our staff members on safety and security and how it's impacted by a positive school climate, and that was done in the fall. And then recently we've done a site assessment of the West Campus building here. That's a result of some incidents that have caused concern about safety and security at the West Campus. I've also recently reinstituted drills at the Little Scouts program and participated with staff training there and making sure they know how to respond. We're putting together an emergency communication portal for all of the tenants in this building to be able to communicate with one another. That was identified as an issue in an incident earlier. And then improve supervision of visitors and how we can, we're getting, with Jordan's help, we're getting a camera set up that can be monitored at the front desk here so we can keep a better idea on who is in the building and trying to control access. The last thing I want to talk about kind of is that connection to positive climate and culture. One of the goals of my department is making connections. And the philosophy behind that is that the understanding, even in our department, that education is a shared responsibility. All stakeholders, including safety and security, are there to help students develop qualities such as empathy, reliability, respect for others, and a sense of humor. And we're working on that every day. We also want to be present in the building and engage with our students. They have an active voice in the school community, and that even includes in safety and security. We're trying to build a culture of safety inclusivity, eliminating feelings of distrust, uncertainty, and hostility. As far as our environment goes, our members of the safety and security team assist other support staff in establishing an orderly and well-maintained environment that is welcoming and secure. And then last but not least, enforcement rules and expectations in our building should be clearly defined and consistently enforced, and appropriate behavior should be modeled by everybody, including the members of my department, so that our students know what being respectful looks and sounds like. That's all I have on my report at this time. Are there any questions that I can answer?
I would just say well done.
Thank you, Mr. Mormon. I appreciate it.
I have two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So the first one is, we all get updates from the state of Illinois about proposed legislation. And it was interesting to me to see that there was a piece of legislation proposed that may go nowhere that was to allow parents to opt their kids out of security drills. And I thought that was really weird until I read further, and the rationale for it is that there have been some perhaps not well thought out drill situations that have scared the daylights out of the kids. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's not the right solution to deal with that problem. You know, we need everybody to participate. So I really like your last slide, and I would never suggest that one is more important than the other, but I'm curious. I think one of the greatest divides between us and our kids is not understanding the culture that they inhabit, which is violence is entirely possible. I'm curious, it's a question really for you, Lane, but it's also a question for Dr. Holland. Do you feel like our students from a social emotional place are overly anxious? Are we able to address that? You have to do what you have to do in terms of the drills, but how do you balance that?
So they were referring to specific types of drills, and these drills
that were crazy terrifying, and we don't do them. I get it.
It was actually a SWAT team that came in with dummy bullets. And
but then it's weird to do, okay, then people can opt out. No, you can't opt out.
As long as you bless me with being in charge of safety and security, I can assure you that I've never even thought of or suggested that we do anything like that. But about your concerns, there are ways that you can work with the support staff that provide supports to those students in those situations. And one of them is advance notice, because we have some students that if they're given advance notice, they can be front-loaded on the expectations of what these drills look like. And I've gone into those specific classrooms and had conversations with them to address their concerns personally, one-on-one, and tried to point out to them that, unfortunately, in the times that we live in, these are necessary for me to make sure that you're safe. We also recently took that into account for our severe weather drill, and we're using the room downstairs that is kind of a peer group room that is very nicely set up with some soft furniture and stuff like that. And we've identified that as an area of low anxiety that we might be able to take those students to help them kind of work through with proper support staff to get through not only the drills, but you have to understand that when we do a drill, all we're doing is making sure we have compliance, and then we're switching back to all clear and going back to activities as normal. In a real life situation, these could be protracted events, and these students could be housed in these environments for an extended period of time. So we have to be highly aware of their sensitivities and make sure that we have A, people in there that are able to address that, and B, put them in the best environment where they can be successful in trying to deal with that. And as I've said, my responsibility is for every student in that building to have equal access to safety and security. It's not okay to say, well, we may have trouble moving this student downstairs, so while we're all safe downstairs, this student will be less safe upstairs. That's unacceptable.
That was a darn good answer. Thank you. That was terrific. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes?
So I remember you came to the foundation about 2 years ago with a very comprehensive safety and security plan, and unfortunately I know that you were turned down by the foundation, but I see you've implemented many of the elements that you were looking to. One thing that you did bring to the foundation was the need for maps in each classroom. Yes. How close are we to really having a procedure set up where our students, regardless of what period they're in during the day, truly understand where they go in the event of a lockdown or an emergency evacuation, despite what period of the day it is and what classroom they're in the building?
So that is a process to get that done. What I have done in the interim period, as I stated, was take each room in the building and build out these evacuation routes, taking into account the student load. And so we have guidance for our staff on the evacuation routes. Formal maps is where you typically engage an outside contractor that's going to take that information and be able to break that down and add into those maps key architectural features of the building, like where all the fire pull stations are, where fire extinguishers are located, where the AEDs are located, primary and secondary evacuation routes. That is the next step that I'm working towards. Once we engage somebody to do that, then we take their recommendations and we go back and we review them and we look at, do we like this? Is this going to work? Then we go back to them, they build those out, and they issue us what essentially is kind of an electronic copy of all of these maps. And if you can think of a typical map as you are here, and that's what they look like. They take that individual classroom, explode it onto a larger view, primary, secondary routes with those architectural features. And then after we get those printed up, then we have to get them mounted into the classroom. So I am engaged in that process. I never anticipated it would take like a month or two to do it. And then also when we look at a master facility plan and how that could conceivably change the space in the building, you have to kind of take that into account as well. So it is still a pending priority of mine that I'm working on, and hopefully I've met with Brian Carroll, our building engineer, because I would need their help in displaying and putting those maps together, and we'll collaborate on that.
All right, well done. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving into the committee reports. Education Committee, Tom Nemekis.
So the Education Committee met on February 19th and had a very productive meeting. I think probably the most informative piece or outcome of the meeting will be to look at the minutes when they are released, because there's a significant level of complexity to what was discussed. And essentially, the focus on the meeting was looking at the processes that we use to assess students trying to reach our milestones for college and career ready, making sure that we're providing resources to meet those assessments, and then also continuous process to reassess and continue to allocate resources in a fashion in which all students' needs are met. And so there's a little bit of a pilot project coming forward with some of the classroom work, and it'll be a continuous process of assessment at this point. And it was really quite impressive, the level of complexity and thought that's gone into the process. And I can't do justice without a slide deck, so I would say that probably the minutes when they're released, if people are interested, would give a better chance for them to look at it.
Great. Okay, Finance and Ops, Sally Davis.
The Finance and Ops meeting that was scheduled for February has been rescheduled. It will be this Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. in whatever that room is right across the hall. It's not the bathroom.
All right, on that, Ted Mormon, Policy Committee.
There are a couple of policies up for review tonight, and second vote. The first is accepting credit from other institutions towards graduation, and it was very thoughtfully done, and it makes sense, and I would recommend we approve. There are certain things, it's like going to an ethnic school for language arts, and because we do have up to 12 credits for like taking Spanish or German, or so if they do it somewhere else, it makes sense for us to approve it. The one thing that is a big change is allowing students up to the age of 21, if they dropped out, to come back rather than get a GED, finish up at the high school if below age 21, with restriction of approval of the board at the recommendation of the administration, because there are certain people that are 20 you probably don't want coming back. But anyway, it's a good foot forward to help students in the community. And also with that, unrelated is there's a state policy they're talking about, not approved yet, where with special education students or special needs students, we're required to provide an education up till age 22. But at age 22 and 1 day, they're cut off. There's talk of it saying if they start a school year at age 22, they can continue up to age 23 to complete, and that's still in the works, hasn't been approved, but again, food for thought. That's all I have. And also, Dewey or Jenny?
I think what you meant with the last one was if they're 21 years and 364 days at the start of the school year, so they're 21 on day one of school, they can remain the entire school year. If they're not.
If they're 21
when school starts.
and when school starts,
Correct.
yeah, they can continue up to age 23.
Yes.
Okay. We're in agreement, so
Yes.
we're good.
We sure? We good? Okay. All right. We're good. Okay, Ed Red, John Noble.
Yep, not a lot this month so far. I'm working on follow-ups with Rep. Morgan and Senator Morrison. I was able to attend the meeting with Ed Red on Friday at Glenbrook and got to listen to Cook County Assessor Fritz Kagi and State Representative Jennifer Gong Gershowitz. So it was insightful, good meeting. But the work in terms of the stuff on the legislative side, most is still in various committees. Some of that stuff is coming out, but they're off this week, so we should see a little bit of noise in the next probably 3 to 4 weeks, and something a little bit more in April when we meet together. So I will continue to observe and update. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move into the action items. Again, the way we like to do it is motion, second, have discussion, and then move on to the roll call vote. So the first action item, may I have a motion to approve the 2021-2022 school calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, before we vote on it, is there any discussion?
I did have one question. I noticed we went down to, I think it's 177 teaching instructional days with 5 gray days, which are, makeup days. Did it used to be 182 days? And have we dropped the number of instructional days?
Dr. Holland?
It's actually 176 days, and that's the requirement from the state of Illinois. Yes, our teacher work days are different than our student attendance days. It hasn't dropped.
Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Ms. Zinser?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next, may I have a motion to approve the revised 2020-2021 school calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, what is the revision specifically?
So you said 2020, 21. So that's for next year. 2021. Excuse me? So there are a few changes for next year's calendar. Our start day, we are starting closer to when we typically start. And so we are starting August 19th rather than students starting on the 17th. Another change is the length of our winter break. We are starting second semester on January 6th. And we adjusted a day in March, shortened our spring break. We still have a week plus a day, which is still a day more than typical, but we are coming back the same day as 65 and 67 now. And our end of the year is back to when it previously was, rather than ending Memorial Day week, the week of Memorial Day, we are ending the first week in June. This calendar is actually is more closely aligned with 65 and 67, although it's not perfect, it never is. And it's been vetted, and we received a lot of feedback regarding the benefits of this calendar.
Great, sounds logical. Any other questions? Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Zinser?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the second reading of Policy 6310, high school credit for non-district experiences, course substitutions, re-entering students?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I think we already covered some of that.
That's what we just discussed, so I have
I
nothing
do
to
have a
add.
question. I presume then by our adopting this, it puts some burden on the administration to figure out how to administer this kind of policy. Is that fair to say? And
I was going to say, it's not really too much, but Mr. Simic is nodding in a
Sally,
statement.
this came out of partial education. This was the
Oh, good.
realignment. This was the realignment to allow administration to have a singular source and consistency throughout our policies and procedures, instead of having it piecemeal throughout multiple areas.
And there wasn't a formal policy before, so it was being administered by the administration, but not with a very specific policy in place, so this does that for them.
great, thanks. Anything else?
And I think the
No,
biggest,
no, I was like, that,
There was a policy, it just contradicted itself in various areas throughout the policy, so this brings it into more of an alignment. It also helps us clarify what it means for a student to graduate with our diploma, where we are clearly stating how many credits they need to obtain at Lake Forest High School rather than an outside entity.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
and it does also, if they do get credits elsewhere, it won't be A, B, C, D, it'll just be a T showing their transfer credits. And it also, like I said, the biggest change, I think, is allowing students to come back after age 18 to, as opposed to a GED, get a diploma with the administration approval.
Thank you.
Okay. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Ms. Sinzer?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the second reading of Policy 5:230, maintaining student discipline?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Does anybody want to comment or question this one? Okay. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Great. May I have a motion to approve the second reading of Policy 5:330, sick days, vacation, holidays, and leaves?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions here? Okay. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Sinzer?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the Chief Technology Officer multi-year contract?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or commentary?
I'd like to comment, I already spoke to Jordan personally and let him know I think he's a wonderful guy, love him to stay. But again, nobody's irreplaceable, and I just think this is an automatic 15% pay raise, from, I guess we can talk numbers here, 150 to 250 in minimum in 5 years, because it says 15% in the first year, and then 6% or above in the next 4 years, which gets them to about 240. It also includes 100% medical, 100% retirement for life, and if they, it's basically the retirement is what gets me. Somebody can get 20, 25 years, and they'll get 100% pay. And let me clarify that number: they get 75%, but the last 4 years they get 6% pay raises. So if you go back T minus 4, they'll get 100% of that, because the last 4 years they guaranteed 27% pay raise. In addition, all staff, this is the only place I've ever heard, and not just here, but the state of Illinois, where in retirement they get 3% pay raises every year for life. And it's so, if in 5 years, and Jordan, you're lucky, you're young, you look young, and I hope you stay for a long time. But when we compare N2, which, the number of, and we only seem to compare against New Trier and Stevenson, for this job, I would assume that we could compare Warren, Champaign school districts. There's a lot of good CTOs out there, and just as we talked about ethanol in biodiesel fuel, that's from the downstate farmers forcing our buses to use a percentage of biodiesel. But bottom line is, I just think it's way too much money, and it's and I'm not, Jordan, you've done a fantastic job. You were hired here 2 years ago or was it 2 or 2.5 years ago, when Cornelius Dubois retired. And I won't say what you were making before then, but it's nobody else's business except yours. But anyway, these are just excessive pay raises, and I'll leave it at that.
I feel compelled to speak on behalf of someone who's going to vote in favor of this without objection. For starters, we have lost two highly regarded members of our staff, our administrative staff in the past year, senior folks who were very valuable and very important to the continued success of our schools and our districts. And Jordan, to me, is one of those people we can't lose. And the reality is that this pay raise, in my opinion, is in step with what our competitive districts are providing. And to be blunt, if we don't keep step, they will come in and they will scoop him up just like they have several of our other key employees. In addition, I don't think that this is a fungible position. I think Jordan has distinguished himself not only as a tech geek, but as a person who can speak non-tech geek, and a person who, much like Lane Lindner, puts the students and the education above and beyond the tech solutions. So I think, Ted, you were very fair in saying, listen, nothing personal, it's just money. Also true, but this is a reasoned decision on my part to agree to this amount, and while it is a lot of money, this is the market that we are negotiating in, and I'm very comfortable with the decision as the steward of our finances.
And I agree with your, points. And we have lost several key people in the last couple of years. But we're just trading employees and stealing employees from our peer districts. And it's just, that's what the market is. They steal ours, we steal theirs, and life goes on.
I think first of all, I appreciate everybody expressing their thoughts and their viewpoints on everything. And I think that we do need to understand that everybody is replaceable, that there are good people out there doing good work, and certainly we have a great employee doing good work. It's hard to know exactly what the market value is, and I think we have an N greater than 2, but still it doesn't matter. It's hard to know. What do you peg the market value at? As a person who prides themselves on being somewhat fiscally conservative, to me, the trade-off is when you're looking at technology and you're looking at innovation and you're looking at being a leading institution in the state and in the country and therefore the world, there's really no area that's evolving more rapidly or more completely than technology. And we've got a guy who helps us navigate that very well. More so, he started putting things in place that are not only going to advance our learning, but have involved some measure of spending to date. And the risk of changing a CTO and deploying potentially yet another system into the schools and into our financial planning, to me, would be reckless. So it's actually, I think Jordan's a fine guy. I don't know Jordan super well. I know the work he does, which has been great, and I know the progress the school's making. So to me, it would be financially irresponsible not to use the resources we have to push them in that direction to invest in technology. I say that, though, Ted, because I do agree with you. We have to be mindful of the money we're spending in aggregate and over time. And the reality is we're not going to be able to capture and protect every single employee we have. In fact, I'm proud of the fact that some people can go on and have more advanced careers. For anybody out there in any other districts, I hope they know that. They can come here, and we are a best-in-class place. And to remain best-in-class, we have to stay on top of the technology game. So that's why I'm very much in favor of doing this, because I think it's actually security and it's actually better financially for us.
Just for those people, the public are watching, this is also discussed in executive session to great length and in detail, so you're getting summation points. Please don't mistake the silence of the rest of the board that we don't have opinions, but we do have a significant conversation prior relative to these issues.
I just want to echo Sally and Dave's comments. Thank you very much, and thank you, Jordan.
Okay. All right, may we move on to a voice vote, please?
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Ms. Enzer?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Nay.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
I'm sorry? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the Chief Communication Officer multi-year contract?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
So the board is going to vote on a contract for Melissa Oakley. She's got a star-studded resume. I feel like we're really lucky to have her. I think she will add a great deal of value, and not insignificantly, also with somebody with whom Ann Whipple has a long-standing relationship, so that will also benefit both her and us. One of the things that the community and the board already knows this, but something worth re-emphasizing is that we do a very good job of casting a wide net and then vetting candidates very, very thoroughly with a keen eye towards the expectations the community has, the expectations that the board has. Ultimately, in this case, this is of my performance and how the organization is performing under my leadership and who can add the most value to that among all of our various applicants. In this case, one of the things that I understood from both boards was that they're really interested in having somebody come in and tell the story of the district. And there's always an opportunity for somebody to come in with a different set of experiences, bring with them the local capital because she is a local resident, but also lifelong experience in the industry and a great relationship with Ann and the ability to take the baton and take it the next step of the road for us. So I think we're very, very fortunate to have Melissa as an applicant and hopefully momentarily as an employee of the district.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Okay. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Nemekis?
I will abstain due to my personal relationship with the Oakleys.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
I'll abstain also.
Ms. Zinser?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Moran? I'm sorry?
No. I won't abstain, and I don't know her, so I approve.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. And this is actually going to net a net savings to the district, too. So hopefully we continue to balance these things out. May I have a motion to approve the Human Resources Report as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Moorman?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
She's listed in the report, so I'm abstaining again, although I have no objection to the rest of the Human Resources Report.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Ms. Zinser?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items, including approval of disbursements, payrolls, and financial statements for January 2020, minutes of a regular meeting and workshop, February 10th, 2020, minutes of an executive session, February 10th, 2020, minutes of a special board meeting, March 4th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Zinser?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Moorman?
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner?
Aye.
Mr. Noble?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We had a number of FOIA requests. NBC 5 status is complete. Illinois Retired Teachers Association status complete. Say Hello College status complete. Stephanie Victor status complete. Parent Foundation status complete. Student status complete. Student status complete. Announcements, Monday, March 23rd, spring break begins. Monday, March 30th, school resumes. And Monday, April 13th, 2020 is our next Board of Education meeting here at 7 p.m. in this room. And as a reminder, those who may be watching and interested in attending, we typically do have board workshops ahead of time. And as we have been saying, we definitely welcome the public's participation and attendance in those meetings. So having said that, may I have a motion to adjourn the Lake Forest Community High School Board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. May I have a voice vote, please?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.